Brian Mitchell is on a one-man mission to beat debt.
We had a mortgage, we had a child. I need to find a way of making more money. I started gambling.
Creator that reaches millions per week.
The worst thing that could have happened.
What do you think is the biggest conspiracy?
First of all, I don't want to be censored, because cashless money doesn't mean tap, 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 tap. It means money that the government controls and can program and tell you what you can and can't do.
A conversation where nothing is off limits.
Welcome to the dark room, the frugal spender.
I don't think money makes you happy. It was almost like seeing the code in the Matrix. I feel like I can see things that nobody else can see now.
You just blew my mind.
The main difference between money that we use, Bitcoin,
Is it inflation proof?
It's deflationary. It's the opposite of what we have. North Korea exists. China exists. These sort of places utilize technology like this for things that you certainly don't want.
Brian Mitchell is not suicidal.
No, I'm okay, guys.
Welcome to the dark room, where everything comes to light.
Serial entrepreneur, podcaster, financial influencer, upwards of 100,000 followers across social platforms, Finfluencer award winner, published in The Times, The Lad Bible and The Mirror, even at one point speaking with the Prime Minister directly regarding the financial crisis in the UK. So, introduce yourself for anybody listening. Who is the Frugal Spender?
Well, that's quite an accolade list there. I never really thought of that like that and put it all together. But that's that sounds pretty good. I like that. So yeah, I mean, I create content about money, and it's something that I never ever thought that I would ever do. I have found this kind of medium that I used to be really anti, actually. To go back to the start of where this all started, I mean, Georgie, who was, funnily enough, your first guest and is also my wife, had obviously a big influence on me in many ways, but one of them is this idea of creating content online. And I was very anti it, like TikTok wise, and like it was very much for me, it was the younger generation. I mean, I'm 36, but I used to think anybody 20s at the time during COVID, TikTok, this is solely for them. This isn't something that I do. I wasn't comfortable talking on, into a microphone or into a camera. That for me just wasn't a thing. And once I started learning about this thing, money, I just thought, with her kind of like pushing me, I found this, like, I can reach people that I could never reach in conversation. Even if I could sit down with all these people one by one, I don't think I could reach them in a way that's actually going to make them do something. And I found that creating content online through TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and podcasting, people seem to listen more. And I don't know whether it's because they sit in their own time, like, whilst they're driving or whilst they're cleaning their house or whatever, they absorb information. That's certainly how I do. That people kind of trust it a bit more.
Yeah.
Because if I just stop somebody in the street and start talking about money, they're going to be like, he's trying to scam me. What's going on here? This is a weird thing to do. People don't like talking about money in this country. So people can privately absorb this information. And I found that is just the best way to try and convince people to have better money habits. And it's kind of snowballed into where we are today.
Yeah, brilliant. So what's your story? Like, how did you get into this? Because I know you've covered it briefly on your channels and stuff, but just for anyone listening, what is the background of kind of how this journey all started?
To put a bit of context, it's probably worth knowing a bit about my upbringing, actually. So I was born in the UK, South African dad, Irish mother, born in the UK, moved to South Africa when I was like 6 months old, and only knew South Africa till I was 13. So I never thought I was ever going to live in another country. And that's actually quite relevant context for where I am today, because even though South Africa is a pretty first world country to a degree, it's still in Africa. And Africa has its problems.
Yeah.
So I kind of witnessed that firsthand and only knew that, the crime, corruption. It's a very religious country. It's a very strict, probably. I mean, I'm 36, like I said, and as a teenager and younger, the cane was a thing. Like, I know if I had an alternative universe where I grew up in England, I wouldn't have experienced that. But I experienced kind of like, we have a set of beliefs as a country, a lot of it being religious, but a lot of it not being. A lot of it's just cultural. We thought a certain way. So anyway, fast forward to 13, my mum then was like, oh, we're going to go to England. Okay, cool. came here. She's like, we're going to live here now. Oh, cool. So I had, within 2 months of me thinking I'm always going to live in South Africa, to come into England, this is now my life.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest thing was a cultural change. Like, having lived in a culture like South Africa and then living in a culture here, it's almost night and day. It's crazy how different it is. And I really struggled with that. People, as a culture, less respectful. I walked out of
here in England.
Yeah. The first school I ever went to, 2 weeks in, just in a science lesson, one of the kids called the teacher the C word. That day I went home, I was like, I can't.
I'm out. I'm done.
In South Africa, that kid would probably been hospitalized. And I'm not glamorizing this.
Just how it is.
That is just how, like, that would not have happened. So I was like, this isn't the kind of dynamic of the school I want to be in. So I left that school, went to another school, which was better, but still, I felt the overarching culture in the UK was just so different. So I kind of like had to try and adapt to that. But I came from it from a very, not religious, because I'm not religious, but from a religious country. And a big part of that is injustice. And it's a weird framing of it, but South Africa as a culture are quite outspoken, quite, some would say, arrogant, which is definitely true. But they will call out things for what they are. They're quite honest about things. So like, I still struggle with this today. But if I walk down the street and I see somebody doing something, like, you know, somebody throwing something on the, I will always say something. It's just in my DNA, but I think because of the culture I grew up in. Whereas I think a lot of people in this country just won't.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of framed kind of the way I create content now, the way I talk about money, is I like to be very honest, because what's the point? Why are we going to skirt around the truth?
So, quick one. Do you feel more South African or English?
South African.
Yeah.
So despite the fact that I've lived here now longer than I lived in South Africa, I think my formative years were that.
That's kind of ingrained.
Any sporting event, it's hard to describe the feeling I had. Like if I watch South Africa play rugby, which I'm going to do in a couple of weeks' time in Wales, I know the feeling I'm going to get when I'm there. English people, I know some English people feel that, but nowhere near to the same degree. It's when you're South African, it's like you're so proud to be South African. Like, as an example, I used to, at school, we'd wear a blazer. We were proud of the school that we went to. When I came to this country, I was like borderline bullied for wanting to wear a blazer. I don't know if that was the same in every school, but it was like, you're not proud of the school that you're from? And I feel that's a quite British thing. It's almost we're a bit embarrassed to be. I mean, maybe it's because at one point the UK just dominated the world, and we feel a bit embarrassed about killing all the people that we did to, you know, take over different countries. Maybe that plays a role in it. I don't know, but that kind of like the pride of who you are never left me. So yeah, I feel more South African for sure.
It's interesting because that speaks to a kind of wider thing that's happening in this country at the moment, where I guess there's like a lack of patriotism within the culture, and then there's almost like this extreme backlash to that, and the kind of rise of like the more extreme elements of the right wing and stuff like that. So it's interesting hearing someone from completely outside of that coming in, experiencing this country, and then kind of seeing it for what it is, really, like a raw, honest kind of look.
I mean, I think it's quite sad to see like, I mean, I feel kind of English, I guess. I'm proud to live in this country. I feel very lucky, despite the fact that there's, you know, it's got a lot of problems. But that kind of, what you're saying then, it's so true. You know, the English flag thing, you know, the whole like, oh, you must be right wing if you put an English flag out in your garden or outside your window. We've just historically viewed that as like, you know, council estate people who are racist. Like, you know, there's a middle ground. You're not one or the other. Like, you can be proud to be English and not be some kind of like neo-Nazi. Like, it's okay for you to be proud of who you are. And I think, I don't know what the solution is for culturally to try and change that. But my mission to try and help it to a degree is money. So to go back, so when I came to this country, I was 13, went through schooling, and I grew up in a single parent household. So my mum and dad divorced quite young. I had a brother and a sister who were older than me. I came to the UK, just me and my mum, because my brother and sister were older. So we were here for about 4 or 5 years. And then, you know, I've understood the value of money from a young age, probably, I mean, in hindsight, I'm sure we'll get into it in a negative way, but I saw my mum having to work a lot just to have very little. In South Africa, we got by. We weren't poor, but we were getting by. And getting by in South Africa is very different to getting by in the UK. Like, there's no...
Can you kind of explain that?
So the UK, I think people, like, even if you had a hard upbringing, you grew up in a council estate, you had more luxuries than the average person in South Africa.
Yeah.
You weren't going to go hungry. Of course, there's situations where parents are neglectful and all that kind of stuff, but there's always somewhere you could go to get food. The state was always going to support you. Like, you can get benefits, you're going to get free schooling, you're going to get NHS, you're going to get all these things that I think people see as a basic right in this country that aren't basic rights in probably the vast majority of the world.
Exist.
It's just not a thing, which leads into why there's so much corruption and why there's crime. So don't get me wrong, this is the better system, but I think people get very complacent and forget that even just being average or below average from your salary perspective, or just, you know, your upbringing, you're still so much more, you're in a better place than so many other places. And Africa is definitely one of those places where, like, if you haven't got much, there's not really anywhere you can go.
Yeah.
Because all the surrounding countries are still Africa. And that's, you know, in fact, South Africa, all the surrounding countries are poorer. So, like, where am I going to go? Like, here we can go, I'm going to go to Ireland, or I'm going to go to Spain, or whatever. You know, maybe there's a better life over there. You know, you're trapped there, and it's quite far distance to swim or get on a boat to somewhere else. So yeah, like, I mean, I grew up, like, I still remember, I would say to my mum, like, oh, for Christmas I want an iPod. I would never get the iPod, I would get the cheapest MP3 player.
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like, yeah, my mum was, you know, she was trying to do the best she could. I'm not resentful. I'm really glad she even had the ability to do that. But that was kind of like a good insight of, like, I never had the best. I always had kind of like the entry level of things, just because my mum couldn't afford it. So then at age 17, got my first job, like working in catering. Then I got my first proper job bartending, which happened to be for like 6 or 7 years at TGI Fridays, where I ultimately met Georgie. But that's where I kind of learned the value of money. I was very independent. My mum then moved away. She essentially abandoned me, very similar to Georgie's story in that sense. But she left to go to Dubai. She wanted me to go with her, but I was like, I've already been, you know, dragged from one country. I'm not going to go to another one.
You've just settled here, yeah.
Yeah, like, you forced me here, don't force me somewhere else. So I started working, had to, like, be forced to pay rent. So I kind of learned to be independent quite quickly. But as a result of that, like, I wasn't financially literate. I didn't know. I was, like, for the first 3 or 4 months, I struggled to pay rent because I couldn't understand that, like, I need to, that's the important bit. So when I get paid, that's the bit I need to focus on first. Whereas I was 20, 21, 18, 19 at this time. I was like, partying's the most important thing. But the money I'm going to use to go clubbing and go drinking with my friends.
You were distracted by them luxuries opening up to you coming into the UK?
Totally. I mean, I wouldn't say if I earned good money, I probably would have pissed a lot of it away.
Yeah.
The first thing I bought, and it was probably just because I went without as a kid, the first thing I bought with my pay from TGI Fridays, I think it was like 200-300 quid for the first, like, couple of weeks or whatever I worked. I bought a TV. It's a 32-inch flat screen TV and a PS3 and Call of Duty. That was my first, like, yes. Like, I got that. Because I always wanted to have this as a kid, but I couldn't. So I'm doing this now. That I wouldn't say that translated forward. I think that kind of, like, for me was almost like plugged a bit of a hole. I was like, okay, cool. I have the ability to do this. But then I never earned enough money to be able to, like, buy Rolexes and be like, be showy and buy the fancy cars. I just didn't have enough money to do it. So anyway, I then met Georgie on a relatively low income. I mean, we both worked in hospitality. It's not the highest paying jobs in the world. We had Isla quite young. I was 23. Georgie was 20. So we were quite young parents.
Yeah.
Wasn't planned. Then we were in a fortunate position to buy a house. So we kind of, like, I'm going to say fell into good financial situation, but it wasn't. It was Georgie. Georgie was the one who was thinking forward. I was thinking of now, despite the fact that I was the breadwinner. on a relatively, I mean, this wasn't a flex, it wasn't a big income, but I just, due to the nature of Georgie working less than me, I earn more than her. So my priority was like, I'm going to earn. And then she was like, well, what are we going to do with the money? That's not something I'd ever thought of.
So initially, Georgie was the one who was actually better with the money.
Absolutely.
And now it's...
Well, yeah, I mean, she's instinctively good. And I don't know whether that's her upbringing. Well, I don't think it is, because I wouldn't say her parents are particularly like savvy with money or know what they're doing with money.
Do you think it's a personality type? Or do you think
I think
maybe
partly,
an excuse? I don't know.
No, I think partly, but I also think partly females tend to think forward more. I think they're more risk adverse generally. It's a big, it's very stereotypical, but they tend to think.
I'd agree with that.
Think about like protect the home.
Yeah.
Think forward, what's going to happen in the future. Whereas guys tend to be a bit more reckless. It's not
PS3 and Call of Duty.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's me playing my console, not worrying about what's going to happen next week. So I was lucky in the sense that, like, because Georgie was good with money in that sense, she to this day never had a credit card, and she's just always avoided debt. It's just she's just never felt. I think her nan, actually, as I think about it, her nan, who passed away a few years ago, she was very old school in her approach of like, don't buy something you can't afford. I think that kind of rubbed off, and then she got on with that. And I think maybe that's where that influence came from, rather than her parents. But in hindsight, I'm really glad she did, because if she was reckless with money, we'd probably be in a much worse situation now.
Yeah.
As a result of that.
Do you think that it's kind of a rite of passage? Because of what you described, I think is like quite a universal thing. Like when you're 18 or whatever, you get your first paycheck, bit of money, whatever. You usually do something stupid with it. I don't know many 18-year-olds that are going to go out and invest in the stock market with their first paycheck. Are you trying to speak to them 18-year-olds to get them to change their mind, or are you more trying to speak to maybe the people that have been through that stage and are ready to then do something more meaningful with what they've got?
I think it's everyone. I don't think I have a unique target audience, despite the fact that, and I'll get into in a second as to kind of my story around debt and the reason why I'm against debt. Money relates to everybody, and that's why I'm quite like, I take a bit of a shotgun approach to my content. Like I don't niche down to like 18-year-olds who have got their first job, or 30-year-olds trying to buy the first house, or what. Like I'm trying to speak to all of them, because I think even though money's so personal to you, the concepts are the same, and you apply to absolutely everything. So like the 18-year-olds that want to go and blow their money on whatever, cool, do that, but don't solely do that. And if your relationship with money is just that, understand that you're going to have a shit future. That's just the reality. And the younger you can internalize that, because you can be taught that. My mum used to try and teach me to save at 17. She even said, I'll take 10% of your money. No. Even though she was trying to tell me to do it, it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. So my mission, my goal, my kind of how I see my job is to try and convince people in a way that they haven't been taught before. And it's not because I'm doing something so revolutionary, but it's more if I just take that shotgun approach and speak to as many people as I can through, at the moment, through social media and podcasts and that kind of stuff. Somebody is going to resonate with them, and it's going to force change. For me, there's nothing better than when I speak to somebody who has done something, and it's not like a narcissistic thing. It's like I've said something, or spoken to a guest somewhere, or said something that I thought was just nothing in a video, and they've gone, right moment, something they were thinking about something the day before, and it just clicked for them, and they're, I need to make some change, and then they actively did something. For me, that's the entire reason why I do it.
So do you think money is emotional?
So Dave Ramsey, I don't know if you know who Dave Ramsey is. He's probably he actually has the biggest money podcast, but he also does like a TV show in America, in the world. He's very anti-debt, had a big influence on me when I first started my journey. And he says, and it's definitely true, that money is 80% emotional and psychological and 20% head knowledge. And it's true. I've had Zoom calls with people to try and help them with money who are accountants. These are people who know money. They understand the system. They know the logical objectively side of it, be like, they deal with spreadsheets, and they understand the plus minus, shouldn't be in debt, blah, 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 blah. They suck. A lot of them suck with money because it's not about the spreadsheet. You can go, I earn this and I spend this. Okay, cool. But people don't spend money like that. It's way more about, I'm feeling a bit sad, spend money. I feel happy, spend money. And it's deeper than that. But emotion plays the vast majority of money problems.
So leading on from that, when was the moment you realised you weren't emotionally aligned with money, or you were in trouble with money, that kind of flipped everything and started you on this mission?
So, well, two things. So when I said about growing up in South Africa, injustice, I always had this burning desire, even when I was bartending and managing bars and stuff, I always had this like niggling feeling in the back of my mind that I wanted to join the police. I wanted to be a police officer, and that was, wanting to help the community, not liking injustice, thinking maybe I can make a difference, some meaning to a job. Never really took it seriously until 2017. So Isla was 4. I was earning okay money at the time. I was like an account manager working for a cider company. So I was always drink related stuff. And I said to Georgie, I was like, I think I want to do it properly. So she was like, okay, cool, very supportive. Applied, went through the process, got into the police. Originally it was in a different county, which would have been unviable. So I was thinking, even though I've got it, I can't do it. So luckily I was able to transfer it to Gloucestershire, where we live, and got in. So 2018, I got into the police, took a quite significant pay cut, from I think I was on like 30 grand at the time. And I dropped down to £19,000 a year training in the police. Now, side note, what a fucking crazy salary for somebody who's out there putting their lives on the line. It does scale up over time, but just how you can incentivize good people to join the police at 19 grand a year is beyond me. So anyway, still no financial literacy whatsoever. Was whatever's in my bank, I'd get my balance to zero. I just didn't feel comfortable holding money. Then that's definitely from childhood, thinking I need to spend what I've got it, so I need to spend it, and just in case it disappears. Joined the police, and then I was like, you know what? Actually, we had a mortgage, we had a child. I was like, I need to find a way of making more money. Like, I have to make more. Like, this is not tenable.
It's bigger than you at this point.
Yeah, it's not tenable. Even though I'm doing it, I've gone from breadwinner to somebody who's gone to follow my passion for what I wanted to do, and sacrifice money as a result. So I was like, I almost took on the role of like, I need to make more money to kind of prove, that this wasn't the worst decision I could possibly make. So for some reason, I started gambling, and I don't really know I can't remember the moment at which I thought this was a good move. But anyway, it probably started from like just a harmless betting £5 on William Hill or whatever. Anyway, the worst thing that could have happened, and I won a decent amount of money quite early, which is the worst thing that could happen, because you get this false sense of ability.
Nearly every story I've heard of addiction around gambling always starts with that initial like big win, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they say that's what hooks people in. And
it's weird how it works that way, because unless I'm blocking out loads of losses before, but I didn't have the money to lose, so I couldn't have.
Yeah.
I reckon in total I probably bet £200, won about 2.5 grand, and was like, I even at this point, so I was just on my phone betting. At this point, I wouldn't say it was an issue. Maybe it was, but I didn't feel like it was. And I said to Georgia, I was like, oh look, two grand or whatever it was. I remember the moment I showed her, and she was like, oh shit. She didn't. Well, yeah, I mean, relatively we were. That was like fucking 10% of my annual pay right there that I just earned. So she was like, cash it out. And I was like, yeah, cash it out. I was like, I had the formula down. At this point, I was betting on Filipino basketball games.
So you believed you could beat the system?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing it. Like I would lose 2 or 3 times, but then I'd win, and I'd win fivefold. I would double my money, almost like clockwork, for a few days, and I was like, I can make this 10 grand. I don't know. I didn't have a limit. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just got caught up in what I was doing. So anyway, I didn't cash it out. Sorry, Georgie. Should have done that. Although, would I be where I am now? I don't know. Maybe not. But so I continued doing it. Very swiftly lost the 2 grand. immediately the guilt's like, oh shit, Georgie's probably spending that $2,000 in a head, probably on things that we needed rather than just like frivolously spending money. Firstly, how am I going to tell her I've lost the $2,000 I've just told her that I had? But then even worse, I'm like, well, I need to win that back. So by winning that back, I have to now go minus because I had no money. So I'm like, well, okay, cool. Now this time, pre-2020, the law allowed credit cards to fund gambling accounts. So I could transfer money from a credit card straight into William Hill, which is fucking crazy, by the way, when you think about it. Luckily that people can't do that anymore. But it just happened to be that this coincided with when this was happening. So 2 years before it was banned, I was doing it. So anyway, I tried to chase that $2,000, very swiftly got minus $6,000 on 2 credit cards.
What time period was that over?
3-4 months maybe.
Oh shit.
So it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Now I can't imagine I was a great person to be around when that was happening, because first of all, I'm trying to hide it. Don't recommend. Never do that. I'm trying to hide it. I'm trying to win it back. And then I'm also like, how am I going to... So my minimum balance on the credit cards were reaching a point that I couldn't even afford, because all the money that we were putting into the household is going to bills. So we've never spent money on anything else, really. Like,
yeah,
I'm thinking I'm trapped. I remember the exact moment I tried to fund, I don't know, I think it was like 20 quid or whatever, tried to put it into my William Hill and it got declined. So I'm like, well, something's wrong here. I must have put the wrong, security code in. Go onto my app. Oh shit, I've maxed out 2 credit cards. This is the highest credit limit I can get, and I've maxed it out gambling, and I can barely, if not cannot, afford the minimum payments.
Yeah.
So I was in a pretty dark place at that point. Like, not like super depression, but just kind of like
Trapped.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
And thank God I took the fight approach. But for a good few weeks, I was very much like, I'm on my own here. What am I going to do? So for me, that was the moment.
So did you have to sit down at some point and have that conversation with Georgie and come clean, essentially?
She knew that I was losing money. She didn't know the extent. I never told her the extent. For me, this was for me. It was a turning point in my entire life. It's where I started to take full ownership of my life. I think because Georgie's been responsible and has taken the lead with important things in our life. She's a great mum. She's great with money. She all the things that we've kind of achieved up until this point was, sure, I helped and I was there, but a lot of it was her initiative. We need to get on the housing ladder. Okay, cool. Yeah, I knew we did, but she took the steps to get us there.
Yeah.
So for me, this was kind of the first point where I was like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
I need to sort this. In hindsight, again, tell your partner. If you find yourself in a situation like this, tell your partner. It's the dumbest thing. It's the dumbest thing, but also the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Like, don't hide this, because it caused me a lot of internal pain, but it also lit a fire underneath me to be like, okay, cool. I'm not going to be the kind of person that's going to let this crush me. What am I going to do? So I literally spent almost every, not even an exaggeration, every waking second learning how to get out of this.
Yeah. And that's the start of everything.
That was a turning point. I opened YouTube, how to get out of debt. That's where Dave Ramsey came up, and plenty of other people and books. In the first year, I reckon I read about 50 or 60 books just on the subject of money, personal growth, finance, debt, all of those things. And I just armed myself with this knowledge. And at the same time, I was in the police, so I was picking up overtime left, right, and centre. And I just gradually just paid off my debt. And I did it I did a spreadsheet, and it was going to take me about 2 years. And I was like, shit, this is a long time, but at least I'm making progress. And I did it in 10 months. So I paid off about $6,000 in 10 months. And as I was coming up to the finish line, that's when I sat down with Georgie and I was like, look, this is what's happened. This is a situation. This is where we are now. I've rectified it. Sorry.
Yeah. I think this is such an important message, because the amount of people that this affects, like up and down the UK, obviously, but worldwide as well. Mm. And I think the culture we live in now, where it's like Instagram, TikTok, highlights of everyone's life, and you feel like everyone's just living it up. Mm-hmm. And it's that same mentality you've just described, where it's like, okay, what can I bring to the table? Like, I need to get involved and do more. And then people do go down these mad paths. And so how old were you when all of that happened?
So that was 2019. So I was 30.
Yeah.
So about 6 years ago, yeah.
So you're probably at that point in your life as well, where you feel like you should have something to be showing and all of that.
And
just a crazy pressure.
Not even in a flashy way. Like we're not flashy people, have never been, thank God, because throughout our formative years and because we've been together for 16 years, we've grown up not having together. We've grown up not having much, which I actually think is the best thing, because now that we're in a position where we can afford things, we don't buy these things. Like, yes, we treat ourselves and we do the things that we want to do, but
nothing to prove.
We've never felt like we need to have the really nice car to prove, oh, look how successful we are. That is not even there's not even, in fact, I'm the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I will drive an old car purposely because I'm not trying to portray an image of me being successful, which again could be construed as not being very healthy, but super lucky in that sense that we've just never had that.
So what do you think is the biggest lie that people still believe when it comes to money?
Something's probably a bit contradictory. That money, people, we in a society have, from an American perspective, capitalism is that money makes you happy. But then I think in this culture, certainly now more than ever, tell everybody that money doesn't make you happy. Now, I think that's the biggest lie. I really believe that. I don't think money makes you happy, but not having money certainly makes you very depressed.
Yeah.
You know what
not
I mean?
having it makes you sad.
Yeah. So like we're somewhere in the middle there. Money doesn't make you happy, but being poor makes you very sad and depressed.
Yeah.
It just does.
For me, money equals safety. I feel like there's not many situations that can't, maybe not resolved, but can't be massively helped.
Yes.
By having money.
It's freedom. It's the ability to put your finger up at something you don't want to do. And that's something that culturally we struggle with. We don't have that in this country. In America, you have it more because it's a very much get up and go and get it kind of mentality. Like, what, you've got a dream? Chase that dream. Go and do it. Go. In this country, we're like, no, tall poppy syndrome. What's that? You're successful? Chop,
Yeah.
No, we don't want that here. You're like, you're not going to be one of us. Like, if you grew up in a council estate, how, like, people... And I lived right next to it when I first came to this. Well, technically, it wasn't a council house, but I was in a council estate, and I'd see it. It's all about community, which is amazing. But if anybody wants to go over there, you're not one of us anymore.
Yeah,
and that's a very British thing. I mean, it might be in other countries too, but the two cultures that I've experienced, South Africa, very much closer to the American side, very much entrepreneurial. Go get it if you can do it. All for you. Sure, there's some people that don't like success, but in this country, generally, success is viewed upon as like not a great thing. You're greedy. You're not a great person. You're evil. So, and that coincides with money doesn't make you happy, which is just a load of bullshit. This ability emotionally, we're talking about 80% of money is emotional. How do you think you're going to react to something if you're constantly in this sort of fight or flight mode, which is what people don't realize they're in?
Yeah.
But if you're on the line constant, whatever you get paid goes out, you've got no wiggle room whatsoever. Every decision you make, every single one relates to money in some way, shape or form. You might not be consciously thinking that, but when you go, I mean, the obvious one, if you go to Tesco and you're like, shit, I have to worry about the price of everything. If most, even when you have money, a lot of people are doing that now because of the price of things, but like, every single, to get your car MOT'd, first thing your brain goes to is, shit, how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
You buy a car, how much is the tax going to... Every decision, even if it's a non-financial one, is, can I afford to do it? So by having a buffer, with whether it's your income or savings, you're going to just overall be happier. And it might not manifest as in, I feel happy, but it's just, you're not going to be as sad.
Yeah. I think that's so true. And a lot of the route, I feel, to opening yourself up to making more money, and it sounds very hippie-ish, but it is mindset.
Totally.
And it is unlocking really your potentials and not holding yourself back with the pack mentality or you shouldn't don't get too brave, don't go out too much. So I sit more on the American side of the fence when it comes to the spirit of that and being entrepreneurial and stuff. But leading on from that, when do you think it's too far? Like coming on to Elon Musk, does anyone need to be a trillionaire?
Well, it's looking like we're going to have the first trillionaire not pretty soon. I struggle with it from a moral perspective. I don't think it's immoral. I don't think money is moral or immoral. I really don't. I think people forget to get to somebody like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos' level of wealth. You don't get there by doing destructive things, and people think you're exploitative and you're paying people too little and you're just extracting wealth, greedy. What I say to those people is, you've never run a business because you don't understand how hard it is to make money when you start a business. You have to be good to people to get money. You have to provide value, whether it's in the form of creating videos for an event or a wedding or whatever. If you do a shit video, guess what? You're going to stop getting leads. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's just the reality. So if you're Elon Musk, like Starlink, linked into Bill Gates. Bill Gates said he wanted everyone to have a computer in their house. That's how, he became the richest man in the world back in the 90s, 2000s. He did that. He pretty much achieved that. Now we have you've all got in our pockets now. Everybody's got it. That's the end game of the value he wanted to provide. On top of that, we now have the internet in a desert because of Elon Musk. You can be in a desert and get fast Wi-Fi because he's had the ability to build rockets, put it up in space, have satellites going around and beam down, I don't know how it works, beam down Wi-Fi to a desert.
Yeah.
That's the reason he's going to become a trillionaire. People are going to look at him and say, no, it's not actually. He just doesn't pay people enough money. That's bullshit. He provides more value than you can fathom at scale.
I completely agree, but obviously going back to South Africa, you're both from at least lived there. So firsthand the poverty and the struggle that's going on there. Does he have, in your opinion, a moral obligation to help fix that, at least for his own country, or is it not his business?
Well, funnily enough, because the fact that he is South African, it probably doesn't help. The issue, I'm quite libertarian in my views. I think everybody should be able to do what they want. I'm very libertarian with money too. I think government should stay out of my business to a large degree. To get the outcome of people that have that view, whereby we basically need to say to somebody, you can't be a trillionaire because we all agree and morally this is incorrect, or billionaire, whatever you decide that line is. How does that practically work? So Elon Musk's about to be a trillionaire. So, okay, let's say any dollar he earns past that point, we're going to tax at 99 or 99.9%. That's the only way you're going to stop him, because he's going to keep going. He's going to keep going. And whether that's because he wants to be the wealthiest person, maybe it's a part of that, or he'll just create businesses that are just successful because he's so good at it. He's going to stop doing whatever it is that he's doing to the degree. Because the incentive was money. Now you're taking that, you're essentially stealing that from me. You're taking it, and I have no control over it. And now we're also saying another massive assumption, that's immoral. Who gets the money? The government. Whichever the local government is. In this case, it's going to be, let's say, the US government. We're assuming that the US government are moral.
Is the moral compass.
And that they are going to spend that money morally. So for me, that's the biggest thing with the whole discussion of should there be billionaires, should there be trillionaires? What's the alternative? I'm sure Elon Musk has given more money or done more charitable things than anyone else. Bill Gates, whether he's a good guy or not, it's debatable, but he's given a lot of money to charities.
So you would say that there's a moral obligation to help other humans, but it should be your choice to do that.
Yes, and I think a big part of why people don't view it that way anymore is the lack of religion. And again, I'm not a religious person, but I think coming from a religious country, even going to religious schools in the UK, the idea of religion is to help those around you, to help your community. The less religious we become as a country and as a society, and even in the West, the more atheist we become, or the lack of religion, the less we think about that. So we've almost taken away this goodness of like help thy neighbor and community food banks, and not necessarily for like being forced to do so, or when you go into Tesco and they're like, oh, here, please give me some. No, we're going to do this because we go to church every Sunday. And we all go, yeah, actually, shit, we should probably help people. And then everyone, bands together, or somebody who goes to the church is struggling. So we all here are going to come together and help that person. Because that's gone, we now go outsource government who aren't very good at it.
Yeah, agreed.
That's my view.
With the capitalism system, by its nature, there has to be a loser and a winner. Like not everyone can win within that system. I'm not anti-capitalist by any means. I think it's the only system that seems to really work. Mm-hmm. But within that, the constraint of that system, mm-hmm. and it kind of ties into what we were just talking about, but should you feel guilty for being a winner, do you think? Knowing that there's losers from you winning.
I don't know if I totally agree that there has to be a loser, because capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other economic system. It just has. All the metrics show that capitalism does that, because just the standard of living has risen, and off the back of that, infrastructure is better. We've got clean water. Everybody's got electricity. Everybody has electricity. There should be nobody in this country that is seeking it that can't get those things. That's as a result of capitalism. Yes, I think there's a sliding scale. We are arguably becoming more and more very socialist in this country, where nearly 50% of GDP in this country is government spending. So nearly 50% of things that are produced and economic value is spent by the government, which is our money. So the taxes that are received, 50% of everything in this country is NHS, benefits. 50%. That sounds a lot like socialism to me. And I think there's a sliding scale. Like I think capitalism is the best system. Whether we're in I don't think we're in full capitalism. I think there's corruption in any system. Yeah, of course, you can't have perfect capitalism. There's a lot of people in the political class that are benefiting off the back of capitalism and paying off their mates and making a fortune from COVID masks or whatever it is that, all these conspiracies that have happened in the past. A lot of it's turned out to be true. They are funneling taxpayers' money. Completely wrong. Those people should go to prison. Despite that, I think the ability for the everyday person who grew up in a council estate to become a multimillionaire, I like that system. And anybody can do it. Not everybody is going to be able to do it. I get it, due to certain circumstances, mindset, all those things. But the fact that everybody has the ability to do it, I think is a good thing. And the very nature of that's going to mean there's going to be billionaires and trillionaires. But I still think we need to have an element of socialism. I think we need to have the people who are down in their luck, the people who are disabled, the people who can't afford private healthcare. There should be something there. Yeah. But it shouldn't be 50% of everything that this country produces.
There should be more of a balance.
Yeah, I think it should be less. I think by the very nature of this mindset that we talk about and the culture of the UK becoming more socialist and less capitalist, we've opened up the floodgates to giving them more money. I mean, as we're recording this, there's going to be a budget in a couple of weeks' time whereby the Chancellor of the Exchequer is likely to is going to have to increase taxes, which means the government are going to get more revenue. And at the moment, we have a system, and talking about debt, the UK spends more money on interest on their debt than on education.
That's crazy.
So their minimum payment for their debt is more than what they spend on education. Make that make sense. The answer to that isn't more taxation, because they're not going to go, it's not like a household budget where, like, for me, when I was in debt, I'm like, shit, I need to earn more money to pay off my debt. I go and do overtime, which is the equivalent of increasing taxes. I then put that towards my balance, it increases my money. No, that's not what's going to happen. That money just goes into more of the NHS to fix the NHS. But the government, and it's not Tories, it's not Labour, it's just the structure of the government, because it's so big, they can't manage our money effectively. So the answer isn't more money. The answer is smaller government, in my opinion.
Side note, actually, in fact, all the government announcements I ever know about or understand is through your content, because when it comes up on the news, I bury my head in the sand so much because I know it's negative.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be more tax, more cuts.
George is the same.
Yeah. So
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And it is.
And I guess you are just naturally pushed away, human condition, just pushed to look away from something you don't want to see.
Yeah. And also it doesn't feel like it does affect you until it does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, taxes
It's
are going
not
up
today.
or like, let's look back to last year when Rachel Reeves was like, oh, I'm not going to tax the working person, and then increased national insurance for employers. But then they then ended up trickling that down to employees getting less. Or what if you are self-employed? You know, it doesn't affect you until it does. Any tax is paid by the consumer. That's a really important rule for everybody to understand. Nobody's going to pay the tax other than the people buying stuff or getting paid. So if you're on PAYE, your tax is going up. Whatever tax increases anywhere, your tax is going up. Or if you go to Tesco, that's going to cost more. Or when you go and put fuel in your car, it's going to cost more, because that's where the taxes come from.
Yeah.
So if they need more money through taxation, it's going to be the people who are buying stuff. There's not some like pot of money from the employer's perspective. No, the employers get money by selling goods and services. So that has to increase. So if you're going to go and get those goods and services, you're going to pay more. So the person who pays any tax increase is always the consumer, and we're all consumers.
So this brings me on to two questions. First of all, tax in general as a concept, do you think it's more on the side of fairness or control?
I think the concept of tax isn't a bad thing necessarily. Tax was created in its most current form to fund war. That's essentially what taxation is. It's like, before that, money was a free market. Like whatever we all agreed was money. So like throughout history, it's been gold. We've all kind of agreed this is valuable, it's quite rare. There's some properties to money that things have to make it better money, and gold was to a degree is the ultimate money. So we all agreed as a nation, as a tribe, whatever, that this is the money. So we've all exchanged this. Then as we got bigger and we build nations, and then ultimately as human beings, we want to fight the other people and take over that country, or that country is trying to take over us. So we need to like build up an army to fight them. Because the government doesn't have its own pot of money, the only way they could have got the way to fund that is through taxation, being forced to give money over for the greater good. That's essentially how it started. Taxation got, I think, as World War One, it got as high as 94%, or it was around about 90% taxation. So,
in this country?
Yeah. To fund the war for a short period of time. So, I mean, again, it was like in brackets, like once you've earned over, I don't know, let's say in today's 40 grand, over 90% of your money, taxation.
How could you survive?
Well, they would have used it as a bracket. So like 40 grand is enough. Anything above that, we're taking. Yeah. So it wasn't like you do. Yeah. So it's bracketed system like it is now. But still, that's not incentivizing you to continue earning above that amount.
Yeah.
But the agreement was the social contract, and what the government said is, this is for short term. This is to fund the war, and then we're going to bring it down. And they did. They brought it back down again. The problem is we then all got used to tax and higher levels of tax, because the government were like, oh, cool, we now know. And when I say the government, obviously they're not the same people in government as it was, during historic wars. But once they start getting revenue through tax, it's not going to get lower.
Yeah.
They're not, once they get a pot of money, and we're going to go, cool, we're going to fund army, police, all these things. The next year, they're not going to go, oh, we're doing all right, actually, let's lower the taxes. It's like, no, just the nature of the system is it gets bigger, they employ more people. NHS now is the biggest employer in the UK. So and that's our money. This is tax money.
Yeah.
The biggest employer in the UK comes from our money.
What's the answer to that though? Because obviously we need an NHS, or do you think?
Well, to that particular problem is I think is efficiency and a culture of work. Personally, so I think so. 5 years as a police officer, I had the privilege of spending a lot of time in hospitals. It wasn't a privilege at the time, but looking back, I got to see behind the curtains of how things worked in a lot of ways. Not at a high level of, board meetings in the NHS or whatever, but it's very inefficient. And you only have to know that if you have to go to the hospital. Like from a patient perspective, pre-COVID and now, the waiting times are insane. Like even when I was a uniformed police officer, there was times when somebody's injured, I've brought them in, whether they've been arrested or I'm just helping them, hours I would have to wait in a waiting room as a uniformed police officer who should be out protecting the streets.
Yeah.
That's a little insight into even the privilege that I had of wearing a uniform, where most of the time you get to cut queues and go through back doors and go to see a doctor that way. There isn't not enough capacity to do that. And a lot of it's clogged up with, mental health is a huge, huge thing. I reckon if I had to put a percentage on it, 75% of every job I ever dealt with in the police was mental health related. It wasn't crime. It wasn't burglaries. It wasn't, assaults. Yeah, that was tiny percentage.
Really?
Most of it is suicidal people who have gone missing because they even threatened suicide, or they just had enough and walked away. That's most of the job.
So you've got like a really good insight into both police work and crime and money. So do you think crime and money is intrinsically linked?
Yeah, because most of it's emotional. If the fight or flight reflex, if you're constantly stuck in that and there's no way out, and somebody comes to you when you're a 14-year-old lad and says, "Hey mate, can you just go run these drugs for me?" And you're like, "Oh no, I'm going to get arrested." Well, the chances of you getting arrested very slim, by the way. And also, I'll give you 100 quid if you just go and do this. That's the entry to, crime actually does pay.
Yeah, and that it's completely different, but similar to your moment of, I've now got $2,000.
Yeah,
hooked.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Well. So once you get, I spoke to a lot of drug dealers and arrested a lot of drug dealers when I was in the police. They make a lot of money, a shitload of money. It's hard. It's hard for them to
spend it.
Yeah, to flex it. But I've searched properties where there's literally hundreds of thousands of pounds sitting there in a room that doesn't look like should have £100,000 in it. Like these people they can make a lot of money. So how do you then say to that person, should probably get on the straight and narrow now, especially when like there's less police on the streets than there ever has been. Like shoplifting, you can go and shoplift now, and if it's less than £200, and this is a real thing, they're not going to prosecute you. So where's the incentive? Yeah, people are going to go and steal more, which is what happens. Like in London in particular, and I don't know what it's like in other major cities. I'm sure it's the same. But it's not uncommon to walk in and just see people grabbing stuff and not even running, just walking. Like literally just walking out. And that's the incentive that we have now got. Okay, well, cool. You're not going to get punished. Or even if you do, it's like, what? You're going to get a criminal record. Who cares? Like it's you're going to do it 20 times before you get caught once.
Yeah.
So it pays to do this. And again, that ties into the whole, for me, the cultural thing that we have in this country, this injustice that I feel like I have, that led me to joining the police, which then when I was in the police, it was frustrating because we as a police force or as a country don't want to prosecute these little things that they seem little. Somebody walking in. So like if my daughter, who's 12 years old, is with me in a shop and sees somebody walking out, which happened recently, she saw somebody shoplifting. I wasn't in the police in time. This was just probably 6 months ago. I then saw him doing it too, went to somebody at the checkout where we were paying and said, just so you know, that guy over there, really distinctive guy in a black jacket, like mid 50s, looked like an alcoholic, grabbed a bottle of something, put it in his, and you could see the bulge in his jacket. And I said to him, mate, just so you know, that guy's, he's literally just put that in his, starts walking out towards the end. He then goes and tells the security guard shrugs his shoulders and lets him walk out.
Yeah.
My daughter saw that. That seems minor, but she's going to grow
It's a
up
whole
knowing
message, yeah.
she lives in a culture where that's going to go unpunished. Luckily, because of my background and my personality and George's personality too, we tell her on a regular basis what's right and what's wrong. But if she didn't have those parents and saw that to be okay, she's more likely to go and do it in the future. And yeah, I think they're massively linked. If you don't have this lack of compassion and justice and community, yeah, of course you're going to commit crime. Why wouldn't you? Especially if that's all you see of the people around you. And again, it sounds like I'm religious because I'm not. I'm really not. But I think the lack of religion has not done any good.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, actually. It brings me on to a kind of question, and I hear it raised a lot from people who are trying to give an answer to the growing crime in this country. And they point it towards wealth inequality. Do you think that, as we were just kind of covering there, do you think this is a cultural shift, or do you think that if we fix wealth inequality, we could then fix crime? Do you think it is linked like that, or do you think there's a deeper problem and maybe wealth inequality is being used as the closest excuse?
No, I think wealth inequality is a huge part of it. It has to be. I think we can't deny that it is. For me, it's what's the cause of the wealth inequality? That for me is the biggest question.
Okay.
Because yes, crime's going to come because people are going to become infuriated politically. I've never been a political person until the last maybe year and a half. If you go back through any of my content, I didn't really talk about, I was lucky enough to interview the Prime Minister a couple of years ago, but that wasn't because I was political.
Okay.
That was because it was coming up to a budget and, 10 Downing Street was like, do you want to interview him? So I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I do want to do that. So yeah, it was a great opportunity. So I got to interview Rishi Sunak, which was really cool. Minimal security, by the way. That was the most shocking thing of it all.
He had a bottle of wine down his jacket.
Yeah. Well, I got closer than we are now
Yeah.
to the Prime Minister, and there was nobody around us. Other than mid-conversation, somebody coming over to take a picture. That's pretty crazy. I didn't get searched. Anyway, that's a side note, but that's kind of maybe leads into the incompetency of the government. They knew who I was because of my social media, but they didn't know if I hated Rishi Sunak.
Security clearance TikTok.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Maybe they knew I was an ex-police officer. I don't know. But either way, that was an interesting side note. As far as the inequality goes, I think the reason for inequality is because of our broken money. Like I really do. And I think I'll quickly go back to the government element. Because people feel like the average person feels worse off because of wealth inequality. You don't have to be poor to feel worse off. You can be middle class at the moment and be crushed. Just going into Tesco, like I can't spend less than £100 a week in Tesco now.
Yeah.
We're a small family of 3. 2 don't eat meat. You know what I mean? Like
That shouldn't be happening.
that shouldn't be £100. That should not be £100 a week on food. And I really do try and go in with a list and try not to spend much money. But just the nature of running a house and feeding a family of 3, that's how much it is now. So like just an average or even above average family is going to feel the inequality element. The richest, sure, they're going to notice it. Maybe they're even not. But they're not going to be affected by it. They continue life as they were, continue going on holidays, continue doing all things they want to do. So the average and below average are the ones that are suffering. So it's going to force people, and even people like me who weren't political, who are now political, to start talking. And I think that's a lot of, we combine that with social media. We're all talking about this constantly of how bad it is all the time. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we're talking about it more, so it feels worse.
Yeah.
And because I'm in it, and this ignorance is bliss thing, Georgie doesn't do it, a bit like you, like try not to consume the news. So you kind of just like maybe not really thinking about it. So like in your own world, which is definitely a better way of living, you're not affected by all these tiny little things that for me, because I talk about it on social media, I kind of have to think about more, and then it makes me be like, oh, everything's so awful. But to go back to the actual reason why, inflation is this word that's used, regularly, and people see it as inflation is just things get more expensive in the supermarket every year. This is just inflation. This is what's meant to happen. The fact that we live in a system where inflation exists is the reason for wealth inequality. Because if things get more expensive over time at a higher rate than you can earn in a savings account, you're losing money. You're losing the ability to buy things with the same amount of money. If you put £100 in your bank, whatever you can buy with £100 today, a week shopping, in 4 or 5 years' time, you aren't going to be able to buy the same amount with whatever that £100 has become in your bank, maybe £115, whatever the interest you got over that time period is not going to be able to buy you the same amount of stuff.
Yeah.
So your only option is to buy things that go up in value higher than inflation. Assets, houses, stocks, all the things that the wealthy buy that people look at and go, oh, you're wealthy, you can do that. No, they're wealthy because they did it.
Yeah.
So this idea of hoarding money and hoarding assets, which is the cause of wealth, well, no, it's not. They're doing what they have to do to maintain their ability to buy things over time. And you can look at it as a moral thing and say, oh yeah, enough's enough. You have 1 million, you have 2 million, you have 1 billion, you have 1 trillion, whatever that number is, you can say that's enough. But they are just trying to maintain their purchasing power over time. If leaving your money in the bank did that, less people would be doing that. Less people would having to buy second, third, fourth homes to try and increase their purchasing power across time. But the reason that is because our money is inflated. And I don't know how much you know about this subject, but the money supply, so like how much money is in circulation, increases and has increased exponentially around the COVID period. It's gone up.
So this is the government printing money.
Yeah. So they don't physically print money. I mean, they do still print some cash, but we use the term printing money. It's just there's more money in circulation. So when you said earlier about capitalism being a zero-sum game, it's actually not, because they can just print money.
Yeah.
And there's a concept called the Cantillon effect. The closest to the money supply get the richest. So if you're in government or you're a contractor that knows somebody in the government, when the money's created, and it's not just like, here's the money, it's more complex than that. Banks can create money through loans. The government can just buy bonds, sell bonds, take money from people, and that's essentially created money. The closest to that get rich. The furthest away from that, the average person who just works a PAYE job, is the furthest away. So they're actually they're the last to get that. Therefore, they suffer. So their money gets worth less, and the people who are the closest, their money's worth more.
So it's who you know.
Totally. It's totally who you know. But it's only because of the system that money can be created. So I don't talk about Bitcoin very much in my content, because I think crypto carries a lot of negativity and scams, and there's a lot of scams in it. But if you just look at Bitcoin conceptually, I don't know how much you know about Bitcoin, but conceptually, the main difference between the money that we use and Bitcoin is that no more can ever be made. Yeah. It's capped. Only 21 million are ever going to be in circulation.
Is it inflation proof?
It's deflationary. It's the opposite of what we have. So if you price things in Bitcoin, it actually gets cheaper over time. So we look at the value of a Bitcoin. So like now,
sorry, you just blew my mind. Deflationary. Mm-hmm. So genuinely the opposite of the system we're trapped in at the moment.
Yeah. So we've come to this idea that everything just gets more expensive because it always has in our lifetime. It's almost like a law of nature. Things get more expensive. That's not true. That's the system that we have just created around, money. So to use the Bitcoin analogy, so the average house, let's say from 10 years ago, would have cost 20 Bitcoin. It's not exact, but let's use it as an example. 20 Bitcoin for the average house. Now it'll be about 3, maybe 4. So in Bitcoin terms, that house has gotten cheaper. It's deflationary. In pounds, it's got way more expensive. So how you measure your money in the system that you measure the things around you in affects your understanding of money and the things you're going to do. Because if you think of anything's more, and if something's inflationary, you're going to have to buy things that go up in value. Bitcoin being one of them, but houses, stocks. If it's deflationary, do you need to do that? Do you even need a pay rise? If everything relative to what you're spending gets cheaper over time,
yeah,
you're not going to ever need a pay rise.
So why don't we jump onto this system?
I think we are weirdly it's a crazy time, because if you said this 4 or 5 years ago, I would have said because the government don't want it to happen, and
which is where my mind would go. I'll be honest. I'd have my
and the
tinfoil
reason
hat
is
on.
because they can profit more. But if the incentives were they can profit too, so like everybody wins. And I'm not promoting Bitcoin as the thing here for it to be, but let's just say we could keep spending pounds, but rather than it being printable, we can just create more of it. We can't. Let's just, whatever that system is, let's just say we copy and paste Bitcoin, we call it pound, and it's not Bitcoin anymore, it's just pounds, but we can't print anymore. It's a total cap on the money that's ever going to be in circulation. Therefore, things are going to get cheap. And the incentive then is, so there's this really interesting guy called Jeff Booth. He's a Bitcoiner, but he's also like a hedge fund manager, very smart guy. And the way he puts it is deflationary. So like with Bitcoin, the cost of something drops to the marginal cost of production. So the example that he uses is a calculator. Calculators used to cost money. So you'd have to buy somebody would have to get all the parts together, put it together, sell it to you. You have a need for it because you need to do maths or add things up. Now, the cost to make a calculator is almost zero, if not zero, because it's an app on our phone. It's just an add-on to our phone. So it's zero. So we now don't pay any money. So the technology is deflationary. Computers, this microphone 20 years ago would have cost a hell of a lot more. Technology's become more efficient. Everything's gone easier to produce because it's the producing at scale. Electronics are just easier because we're mining more stuff out the ground to do it. All of these things combined make things cheaper over time. The only reason it's not getting as cheap as it would have been is because money's being inflated at the same time. So you've got like things getting cheaper with technology, and money is technology at the end of the day. The fact that this is getting cheaper, but money's going up, means that it's getting cheaper, but not at a rate that it should be.
Yeah.
So if we view things from a deflationary perspective, in a system that we all agree this is what this is, yeah, cool. Which if we just started a blank slate today and was like, we're doing this, that's how our future would look. There wouldn't be this inequality that there is. There would be no need for people to have all these houses. Sure, there's greedy people. 100% there's greedy people that are going to want to have all these things. But the desire for that's going to drop significantly when anything you pretty much want is getting cheaper over time.
So do you think it would destroy or hinder at least consumerism?
I don't know, because I think the things that you wanted are going to get cheaper. Maybe it would get worse. Because consumerism as it currently stands relies so heavily on debt. The ability to buy a pizza on Klarna, you can delay payment for a £10 pizza and pay it in 3 months' time in installments. That's damaging in a deflationary environment, or at least a non-inflationary environment. Like it's deflationary. It's quite a crazy concept and sounds really radical. But even if like we just stopped printing money, how about that? We just stopped. And we just said, this is where we draw a line in the sand. And like, whatever 100 quid today is going to be worth the same as 100 quid in 4 or 5 years' time. It's just now, this is just what it is now. You're not going to have this desire to delay payment for 6 months' time. A lot of people use debt because inflation erodes debt. So like a mortgage, people who bought a house 40, 50 years ago, their mortgages are tiny now. And we're all jealous of it because, the houses were cheaper back then. And because of inflation, the houses have gone up risen so much in value, and they've only got like £1,000 left on their mortgage. So inflation eats away at debt. So this idea that inflation actually helps that in so many ways, because it just destroys the value of you. You're almost incentivized to borrow as much as you can over a long period of time. So maybe it would help it.
Do you think that us kind of moving towards a cashless society, which was a phrase, if you go back 5 years, was a proper conspiracy phrase. And now it's like everyday life, pretty much. When I do have cash on me, like cashiers in shops will be took back. It's not a normal thing anymore. Do you think that that's a natural evolution of just things being convenient, or do you think that there's some purpose behind that?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think just the nature of technology moving forward means that we can do this. It's more convenient. but I think it's packaged as convenient with an agenda from many people. So you can't control a labourer who gets paid in cash what they do with that money. You know, when I create a video about cashless societies and say, you know, this is the way money's going, quite a big percentage of people who leave a comment would be like, good, all those people dodging tax, finally they can pay their fair share. And you're like, yeah, but maybe you're not looking at the other side, because that's a small percentage. I think that's always going to exist. You know, people are always going to try and avoid the system. This is packaged in a way that's like, oh, it's convenient, and you know, you're not going to have to do a self-assessment because we can just like see all your payments. You know, which sounds great.
Terrifying.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. Great, amazing. Less work for me to do in our current situation. Well, I think a lot of this, you know, to draw back to my experiences, growing up in another country, you get to see that this isn't everywhere. England, this tiny little island, or the UK, this tiny is not everywhere. North Korea exists. China exists. These sort of places utilize technology like this for things that you certainly don't want. You don't want that. So the fact that the government potentially will have the ability soon to do that. Right now, the government might seem okay, even if, you know, whether you like or hate Labour, or you love or hate the Tories. If society shifts, or they go, oh, there's another COVID. Oh, no. Big pandemic happening now. You can't spend any money unless it's on bills because you can't leave your house. No. It's for the greater good. It's not far-fetched anymore since COVID.
No, it's not at all.
To think that and I know because had to give people tickets for this, which is a moral dilemma that I have even to this day still think about. I would stop a car, demand to know the purpose of their journey. That's Nazi shit.
Yeah.
Demand to know what they were doing with their journey, and if it wasn't a valid reason that deemed by the government literally 2 days ago, because they were constantly changing things, you're going to get a fine. That was 4 years ago. Now, imagine if they can control every purchase you make. No, Matt, no, mate. You've had too much Domino's this month. You haven't. but we think there's too much salt in that because, because our chief advisor here from the medical, they say salt, not good. So for the greater good, you can't spend any money on fast food. What's that, gambling? No. We deem that, and I'll agree to a degree that gambling, but you should have the ability to do it. No, you can't do that. It's kind of happening to a certain extent now for different reasons. So I buy Bitcoin. I had to leave 2 banks because they refused to let me buy Bitcoin.
I've had that, yeah.
Make that make sense. I could buy cigarettes in a row. I could go to a shop, buy cigarettes, go to another shop, buy alcohol, and then sit at home and try and make an investment with crypto. Declined. They approved everything else. So you have me to kill myself through lung cancer and liver cancer. But me doing whatever I want to do with my own money, that doesn't even affect anyone but me, you're going to tell me I can't do it. That's a small little insight into what cashless money would be. Because cashless money doesn't mean tap, 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 tap. It means money that the government controls and can program and tell you what you can and can't do. That's not a world at all. And I hope to God, and I'll fight it for it. I mean, not the, but I'll be at 11 and 10 Downing Street outside that fence shouting, saying this can't happen.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing is, do you think it becomes, like a legislation, like, okay, tomorrow we're just going cashless? Or do you think, because it's almost pretty much there, we just drift into this kind of, it happens because it's convenient, and then one day they go, well, do you know what? We're there already. You don't really need it. Do you think it's more likely to happen that way?
Yeah, I think all of this stuff happens covertly. I think it all happens through the back door, and it always happens through convenience. Always. The COVID, to go back to COVID, the COVID passes that you need to have to kind of like go to another country or travel or do anything, or even to like bloody leave your house. You had to like have something to prove that you could do it. And this is all for convenience. Just use our app, use this app here that billions of pounds got funneled into. This will make it very convenient for you. And I know like luckily that all died away because COVID thankfully had disappeared and everything, you know, everyone saw sense again. But that happened through convenience and more importantly, out of fear. So like this whole digital ID thing that's been, well, it's happening. How bad it's going to be, who knows? But it's happening. So nobody wanted it. Everybody's, you know, I signed a petition, and millions of other people signed a petition to stop it. It's not going to get stopped. It's not being stopped. So that was, you know, 2 months ago. I've barely even thought about it since, and I hate it, and I've barely thought about it. So that's happening now. So when it happens and it comes in, it's just going to be, here's the next layer of what's going to happen. So like you have to work in this country because of all these illegal immigrants, which is how they've sold it. All these illegal immigrants that we all collectively think's a bad thing. Not all, but like the people who do, the outspoken majority are going to say, or minority, saying this is a bad thing. By having this digital ID, it'll stop that because, you know, they can't work because you have to prove it. So there you go. It becomes the fear of these illegal immigrants that are coming here and committing crime, which is how they're kind of now trying to portray it. But the convenience is the digital ID. But then the digital, like, what is that? What, you can't do anything if you haven't got a digital ID? What if I don't want a digital ID?
Yeah.
Oh, but you do need it because then you have to, and then your national insurance, your bank card, your pass, everything's tied to this digital ID. It's very convenient. Find some, whatever the latest fear thing is, and then more and more people will do it. It's literally just COVID is the blueprint for anything, and I'm sure it's happened historically, probably forever. This idea of control through fear is just how they pass through convenience and fear, anything that, you know, the way that they can control you. Well,
it's like create the problem, provide the convenience, isn't it? Like you were just saying. So what do you think is the biggest conspiracy when it comes to money, like that you believe in? Is it the digital ID? Maybe you've just covered it.
No, although I think that's pretty insidious. I don't think that is it. I think, and we've actually covered it quite a bit, but this idea that taxation is theft. People don't think about it. I agree we need a little bit of taxation, but I think the way in which tax is taken is just, to me, it's pure theft. It's pure theft. So when I was in the police, I did a video about this recently, but in the police we had to learn definitions about, robbery, and there's a clear definition of what that is, and then to prove somebody's committed robbery, they have to actually have hit every single. It's called points to prove. So with theft, it's a very clear one. It's probably the most recited one, and it is. There's a very specific line that is essentially it is the intentional taking of something from somebody else with the intention of permanently depriving them of it, and doing that dishonestly. So dishonestly appropriating property belonging to another with the intention of never ever giving it back to them. So if you're going to steal from a shop, the way you'd prove that is they've taken it from the shelf, they've concealed it. That's dishonest. That's clearly dishonest. They've then walked past every single payment point, every counter, and as they're about to walk out the door, do walk out the door, they've clearly demonstrated that they're permanently depriving that shop of that item. Bam, theft. Arrested, criminal record, done. If we relate that to tax, I don't see that being much different. The dishonesty element, why, have you ever thought why there isn't just tax? So like
a blanket tax.
Yeah. So like we just call it tax. And when you get paid, whether you're self-employed or through PAYE, there's just a little line there that says tax. And whatever that number is, 20%, 40%, 45%, whatever that number is, that's the tax you pay. That would make sense.
Yeah.
We all agree. That's honest.
Easy to understand.
Transparent. It's honest. We all go, yep, this is how much tax I've paid. But it doesn't work like that, does it? Because you've already been taxed on this money. So you get your gross pay at the top, the tax, your national insurance, which is the tax, your pension, money that you have to save for your future, then the amount down the bottom there. And that amount down the bottom there, you would go, I've been taxed. I'm not going to get taxed on this money. Okay, cool. Now you go and put fuel in your car, fuel tax. Then you go to the Tesco, VAT. Then you got to go home to the house that you've paid home insurance. There's IPT, so insurance premium tax in there. There's council tax, which is a tax. Every element of the step of the process, there's taxed. You're getting taxed upon tax upon tax. I think we can all agree that is dishonest.
Yeah.
Objectively, that's dishonest. So immediately that element of the crime of theft has been made out. I don't think we can even disagree. So the next element, taking from another person, I mean, that's pretty obvious. It's getting, if you get paid by an employer, you have no choice in the matter. That tax is taken away from you. You don't even say, this is how much tax I want to pay. Self-employed, slightly different. You have to declare it. Way more taxing than on you as a person. But you still have to, you have to do it. If you don't, you can ultimately go to prison. But you're going to get fined and you're going to get in trouble and you're going to get penalized and you're going to not be able to do things because you haven't paid the correct amount of tax.
Yeah.
So taking from another person is there. So the next and probably the biggest and most controversial part is the intention of never giving it back. This permanently depriving us of our taxation, which I would argue is quite glaringly obvious, despite the fact that 50% of our money goes to things like tax, to NHS, to benefits, all of those things. You speak to anybody who is the beneficiary of those things, they're going to say, this isn't what we all want. We want that NHS, for the amount of money the NHS spends, we should be getting a better service.
Yeah.
I'm being deprived. So if I break my leg now, or worse, if I get cancer now, it's going to take me potentially months to even start treatment. The fuck? Like how much money we spend as a country on the NHS. I would say I'm being deprived of a service there that I've been promised. Police. As an ex-police officer, I've called the police twice. Since leaving the police, nobody came. I'm being deprived of the thing that I expect. We as a society agree, we pay tax because we all get the things that we want, the nice roads, which are filled with potholes. Genuinely, like that's not even me being, that is literally the reality that we have. So we're all being deprived of this thing that we all kind of have a societal, cultural agreement that our taxes are going to, and none of us are getting it. So to me, that makes out the entire theft element of tax. And we're not talking about it. Nobody's talking about it because even if I do talk about it, the people that agree are really loud because they've thought about it. Most people don't think about this. They just think tax, it is what it is. We all get taxed. It's going to happen. We can't do anything about it. But the reality is it's being taken from us by force and we can't do anything about it. And then that would be okay because a lot of people say, Denmark and Scandinavian countries, high taxation. But yes, the things they get for that are so much better. You talk to anybody who's been there or lives there or has paid tax there, the public services are so much better than here. I would argue and say, okay, cool. Societally, they all, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people agree that that's the kind of way they want to go, but at least they're getting their value. We aren't. So for me, that's the biggest conspiracy.
I think that's bang on the money. And I think that's so true as well. If people were getting what they're paid for, they probably wouldn't feel as ripped off and be leaving to Dubai every day.
Well, exactly. And there's no ombudsman, like if Currys sell you a laptop and it's not what they promised, you can go and be like, go to Currys, and if they go, no, I'm not doing anything, there's routes to go down to hold them accountable for that. There's no, you pay your tax, we decide what we're going to do. There's no like referendum every time they get a pot of money and they're like, how are we going to spend it? Let's make a vote. I think that probably wouldn't be a smart move to do anyway, because, common sense isn't so common. So a lot of people are probably going to do this stupid thing. But a few small people in the political class get to decide what they do with your money. And there's trillions of it.
Speaking about this stuff that is very controversial and could upset very powerful people, does that ever play on your mind? Does that ever bother you?
I've definitely been censored. So after interviewing Rishi Sunak, I was on their radar of somebody to like be a bit of a mouthpiece for them, and whatever they were doing, I could reach my audience of a couple of 100,000 people. Yeah. Great, fantastic. Like he's speaking to an audience that essentially hate the government generally. You know, people in their mid-20s up to age 50 who want to learn about money and better themselves tend to not trust the government that much. That tends to be the demographic of people that listen to what, you know, I talk about. So they probably saw that as, and it wasn't just me, there's other creators too that had those opportunities. So anyway, I interviewed Rishi Sunak, and then I was like, oh, great, that's really cool. Didn't get paid, obviously. I paid on my own travel, did all those things. And then a couple of weeks later, they emailed me again, literally 10 Downing Street's the email, which is quite funny. Yeah. They're like
hotmail.com.
Yeah, Gmail, yeah. And then they were like, oh, so we're I think it was around about the time of the budget, but they invited me anyway to 10 and 11 Downing Street to go in to be able to create content, speak to, at the time it was Jeremy Hunt, who was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, to talk to him. It's like, well, a great opportunity. This is really cool.
That's massive, yeah.
Yeah, really cool. And that was, for me, it's more relevant. Even though it's cool to speak to a prime minister, it was more relevant to talk to somebody who was in charge of, you know, all of our money. So I came back and was like, oh yeah, cool, give me like some dates and stuff. And then they were like, oh cool, yeah, but just some caveats. You can't post anything without our permission. We have to approve kind of the tone of what you're saying and how you're saying it. And I was like, red flag, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You're not telling me what I can and can't say. If I disagree with something he says, I'm going to say it. On top of that, I would have had to stay over in London. I would have had to get a train there. This was going to cost me probably £300 minimum to do. They weren't going to pay any expenses. So I just said to them, politely, like, thank you, but first of all, I don't want to be censored. And second of all, like, if you're going to get me to do this, you're the government. You've got a load of my money and everyone else's money. The least you can do for me promoting you, because you want me to tell you this, say these certain things, you could at least pay for my expenses. So they weren't going to do it. So I then created a video, as I do, about that. And I was like, this is just a little window into how things work. Do what we want you to do,
and you're part
or we're
of the
going to
club.
extradite
Yeah.
you. So now I'm not. So I'm in a WhatsApp group with a load of other content creators in the finance, some of them with millions of followers. And a lot of them get interviewed back to these things. And my name's just, I've had no further communication. It's my own fault. I created a video about it. But that's just a little, they will pick people who they know are going to say, you know, stick to the party line. And I'm not going to do that. So whether I certainly don't think I'm in danger in any way. Like there's plenty of outspoken people in the public eye that have bigger followings than me that are anti-government. I mean, it's not even that I'm anti-government. I'm anti the current state and the size of the government. Like, I think we need a government, but it needs to be much smaller, and we need to have more of a say as a people. But as far as fear goes, no, I find it quite funny.
Brian Mitchell is not suicidal.
No, I'm okay, guys. Don't worry.
So, being a creator in general, obviously you have to put certain content out, and people might not see the full spectrum of like who you are. What's something that you wish people knew about you?
I suffer with like massive imposter syndrome. That's something that might not come across on creating videos. I can present confidence, and I am a confident person to a degree, but I suffer with massive imposter syndrome. And I don't know whether that's anything to do with my upbringing and never having the best of things. I've never felt worthy of the things I've achieved, if that makes sense. So if I'm in a situation, everything feels unearned to me. So like from money, which is something that I still struggle with. Like if I charge a brand X amount of money, or I go and make money by doing something, there's still a small part of me, and I've subsided it massively, but there's still a small part of me that's like, you don't deserve that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
And like if somebody thinks I'm an expert in a, like I would objectively, when you look at what I talk about and think, you'd say, oh, he's an expert in personal finance. But I'm like, well, I'm not. I just have learned a lot about it, and I'm passionate about it, so I talk about it. But that is almost kind of the definition of an expert in that thing. But for me, I'm kind of like, I almost disassociate myself with the success element. So like everything I'm a bit like Georgie in the sense of, and as she was saying when in your podcast with her, I have to do and be the best at whatever I do.
Yeah.
So when I was a bartender, I my entire goal was to be the best bartender I possibly could. And I was like winning competitions and putting myself out and spending hours learning things, and way more than the average bartender was doing, because I just thought whatever I'm doing, I wanted to be the best at it. But then when I got there, I suffered from imposter syndrome, despite the fact that I put in the work. It doesn't matter what I did. So I do martial arts for the last 7 years. I've done Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I've taken time off and off. And anyway, when I got my blue belt, which is the second grading in jiu-jitsu, it takes the average person about 3 years of consistent training to do it. When I got it, I didn't feel worthy of it. I literally lost blood, sweat, tears, got beaten up by hundreds, if not thousands of people to get there, but I still didn't feel worthy of it. And that's a good kind of like translation to everything that I do. And I don't know whether it's a good thing, because when I get there, I don't think like, not that it's not enough, but like I need to work harder to prove that what I'm doing I am worth it. But for me, that's something that I think a lot of people don't know.
Side note, do you think there's a creative element to jiu-jitsu? Because every like creator or content person I know that does a martial arts seems to be jiu-jitsu.
I think there's two reasons for that. One, you don't get punched in the face. I mean, you can get punched in the face, but because it's grappling, it's very much, you can go 100% and not
get black eyes.
Visibly be beating the shit out of, even though you can emotionally and under a t-shirt have loads of bruises, which I currently do. But you can't, it's not obvious that you fight.
I've had a fight,
Yeah. So I think people who are on screen, and a lot of famous people do it as well, because it's kind of it's not this like full physical, it is, but it's not like obvious. And there's another element that's like a very cerebral. There's a joke in the jiu-jitsu community that it's basically just filled with autistic software engineers. Like it's literally just people who like systems and people who are very cerebral. So like people who like, if I do this,
this is
you do that, you do that, I do this, you do this. So it's basically physical chess. So it gets a certain demographic, which is scary as hell, because if you bump into somebody in the street, they might look very unassuming, unless they've got massive cauliflower ear. You might bump into them in the street and be like, oh, that's just like a nerdy software engineer, but he can fuck you up because he knows jiu-jitsu and he's trained very hard. Then he's just got that brain. So like he's not inclined to go boxing. He's not going to go get kicked in the head. He's going to go into a place that he's going to, this makes sense to me. It's very thoughtful. So I think people who are creative maybe find the intertwine, because you can be creative. I guess in something like boxing you can be, and other martial arts where you're punching, but there's only like 4 or 5 moves that you can get really competent at, and that's it. Jiu-jitsu, there's like thousands, and we've not come across all of them. So like you've got to think every movement of your body can be twisted in a certain way.
It's like physical chess almost.
Yeah, you do this, I do that. And if I do, like there's people who have been doing it for 30, 40 years that are still learning, like, oh shit, I've never thought about that. I've never been in this position before. So I think it attracts that creative
thinking man's. Yeah. That's interesting. So this one comes directly from Georgie, but it was it was a question she asked, but it was such a good question. I think I'm going to implement it to every episode. And it was just, is it all worth it?
Yeah, I mean, my life looks very different 5 years ago or 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was employed by somebody and I never even thought about money, never thought about creating content. That was just like, I was just going to live my life, and whatever happened. Life was going to happen to me. 5 years ago, slightly different. I was kind of like being a bit more intentional, followed my passion, did the thing that I wanted to do. Again, never really thought about money or taking any ownership. For me, the big flip was when I went self-employed with Georgie, and we had that kind of, for me, the self-ownership part. But also, it was almost like seeing the code in the Matrix. Like I can see this. I feel like I can see things that nobody else can see now by being self-employed.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you get that.
I 100% get that.
But it almost looks like
it's almost like everyone's trapped in the system still.
And they're like fish that are in a tank and they don't know what water is. They're literally just like, fucking hate my job, but I'm going to go to it anyway. And then they clock in and then they spend all day whinging and then they go home and then they get stuck in the cycle. And then you say to them, bro, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean I don't have to do that? Like, no, you actually don't have to do that.
That's like today. I was just like, my wife, she does Not to belittle what she does, because it's a very important work, but she does like a typical 9 to 5, and she's like, yeah, I've got to work all day, got all these stressful meetings, and I was like, I've got to go and do a podcast with Brian. That's what my day looks like today. I was like, this is wicked.
You happen to life. And that's the biggest change for me is I didn't have this like set path that my employer or my career path told me I was going to do. I can now do. I'm a mixed bag. I do things like this. I interview prime ministers. I create content online when people can hear me in my car. It's weird. I look like a weirdo. I edit a podcast separately in an industry that I'm not even in. So like I now have all these feathers that in my bow that are just completely random. And when somebody says to me, what do you do? I'm like, well, I do like a lot of different things.
Where to start?
Yeah, but I do things that I want to do. And I think for me, that means that it's not easier. If you're ever thinking like, I want to go self-employed or, be the master of my own destiny or whatever that means for you, it's definitely harder, but it's absolutely worth it.
You happen to life. I fucking love that. That is so good. Might put it on a t-shirt or something.
You should. I'm going to get commissions.
Yeah, you can get your tax.
Yeah.
So something I ask everybody, is there any question you wish I would have asked today that I didn't?
Maybe what's your biggest regret? I think it's probably a good one to get people thinking. I think it's easy when you talk to people to try and big up the things you're good at. I mean, maybe different in the UK because we're quite self-deprecating. But I think a lot of people don't think about the things that they should have done and they never did. But also that might make them do that thing now. Like to relate this to money, I wish I started investing when I was 18 years old, but I didn't. It's probably one of my biggest regrets, not learning about money early. But as soon as I learned about it and started it, my life is immeasurably better within 5-6 years. So understanding and confronting the thing that you knew you should have done but didn't do, but doing it now, martial arts, for example, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's people who start this in their 60s. Most people, probably 2%, if not less, of the population do a martial art. And then imagine someone who's older going, it's too late, wish I did it when I was younger. It's like, well, no, you can do it now. You can start investing now. You can, do the career, follow that career path, go self-employed now. Everyone always thinks because they didn't do it that they can't do it now. So I think forcing people to think about their biggest regret might influence what they're going to do going forward.
Thank you so much for coming in and giving me your time today, because you've blown my mind on quite a few different subjects. This is kind of one of them where people are probably going to watch and then be inspired to maybe take action or do more. So where can people kind of learn more or hear about you, or maybe follow along like I do on TikTok and stuff like that?
So Frugal Spender is the handle that I go by. It was very much an intentional name to talk about balance. So like saving, being scrimping, but then also spending money. So that's where that came from. One of Georgie's ideas. So if you search that on Instagram, TikTok, I do some stuff on YouTube as well, but I tend to do more stuff on other people's things, a bit like this. I quite like going into different settings and being in different like genres of podcasts. I think for me, that's more interesting. But from a personal finance, if you feel in any way inspired or something I've said that's interesting, there's so much stuff out there. Like, sure, I talk about it and come and follow me, that'd be great. But the beauty of the internet now is there's thousands of people talking about the same subjects I am. It's just packaged in a different way. Like, you might not relate to me. Maybe you hate, police officers, and because I was one, you might not want to talk. Like, whatever it is, that's something that you just don't want. You don't jive with what I'm saying. Don't let that be the reason why you don't go and do it. There's a girl that I had on my podcast recently called Mia McGrath. She's like blowing up on TikTok at the moment. And she's a young girl. She's like 21, 22, used to be in fashion and now talks about investing on TikTok. You're like, fucking hell, how cool is that? This is somebody that her audience probably never going to even think about investing, or maybe they will in the future, but at that moment in time, they're not going to think about it. And they've got this girl that they can relate to, and they're going to go, oh shit, I'm going to listen to what she says. How many people she's going to inspire to go and do something? How many people hopefully I'm going to inspire, or the other people? So just like, even if it's not me, go on YouTube or find other podcasts relating to personal finance, find one, try a few, find one that like you just jive with and it makes sense to you, and just understand it, spend a bit of time. It's probably the biggest leverage thing you can do in your life is understanding money, even at the basic level. Even if you listen to one podcast, you're going to be probably more informed than the vast majority of the UK, because people just don't seek this information. This will be the biggest leverage play in your life. Not just because you're your own person, but you will just make better decisions. Your future is going to be better. You're going to thank yourself. You're not going to have this regret when you're older. Personal finance is linked to everything. So just go out and find this information.
Brian, thank you so much. That was amazing. The Frugal Spender.